Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show every day, covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide. Reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Would you like it back?
what do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like it back?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Hey, what do you say, folks? Here we go on a Tuesday, December 22nd. Great to see you today, rolling up to Christmas Day on Friday. But we still got lots to talk about, today here on Free Speech TV. President Obama still on the big vacay in Hawaii, of course. Played a round of golf yesterday. They invited the White House press pool up, which is very unusual, to watch the play on the 18th green. And President Obama chipped one from the edge of the green right into the hole. He was very, very happy. And that was caught on national television. So nobody can deny it. Yes, indeed. And now there are 12 Republican candidates left, with Lindsey Graham dropping out yesterday, Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. Too bad. He was a hawk, the biggest hawk of the group. Certainly disagreed with him on that. He would have ground troops in Syria in a New York second. But Lindsey Graham was the only candidate really willing to take on Donald Trump, the first one in the strongest terms, saying he didn't care if Donald Trump left the Republican Party or ran as an independent. He wanted to kick him out of the party. And Lindsey Graham also telling Republicans they were making a huge mistake if they did not take the lead on immigration reform. We're going to miss Lindsey Graham. Meanwhile, Donald Trump not only is still in the race, he is still leading in national polls. He is still leading or very close to Ted Cruz in Iowa. And PolitiFact yesterday named Donald Trump the liar of the year. They checked 77 statements of his. 76 of them turned out to be false. So much for Donald Trump. Lots to talk about. Give us a call. 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you on board. Happy Tuesday.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 This is my...
you wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
She's preggers. Chelsea Clinton. Just what Hillary needs. A second grandchild. All the way to the White House. There it is. Boy, that family, man. Talk about family planning.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Hello, hello, hello. On a Tuesday, December 22nd. It's the Bill Press Show, and you are part of it. And we're glad to see you. Glad to have you on board today. We are with you everywhere in this great land of ours, right alongside of you on the radio and on television, on your local progressive talk radio station, on TuneIn. Talked to a guy in New York yesterday. How can I hear you in New York? I said, well, you know. He said, are you on TuneIn? I said, absolutely. He said, I'll be listening. All right. Tune in, the TuneIn app or the iHeartRadio. Download them, and then you can follow us on the radio wherever you are in this great land of ours. Or you can, of course, watch us on TV, on the Dish Network and on DirecTV, Free Speech TV. Here we are, and our where we're actually located, of course, as you know, our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., keeping track of the news of the day wherever it happens to be, not just here in Washington, because there ain't nothing going on in Washington these days with the president out of town, vice president out of town, Congress, this House and the Senate out of town, cabinet secretary's gone. You can get a seat in any restaurant any time of day now this week. But we got it covered, and we want to hear from you as to what you're up to. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. And you can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Now, Christmas season hasn't broken up the Bill Press team. We are all here today, at least one more day. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Here we are.
Good morning. Yes, indeed, before we just head to different directions. Ray Rogers on the phones here, taking your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and behind the closed door, no microphone, no lights. Cyprian Bolding, he's there, yes. But he's on the job. We know he's on the job, and I know
you don't see him, but you know he's there.
Right. And, of course, Peter and Jamie and Ray at the White House last night.
Yeah, can you believe it? They let us in.
Special holiday tour. It's very festive, isn't it?
It was very cool, yes.
Beautiful. It's the people's house. They should just open up the doors and let everybody in.
Yeah.
Not quite that easy to get in, but
no, it's a little more controlled. You don't get to go everywhere in the people's house.
Right. You've tried to go. If you try to go up that those stairs to the second floor,
yeah,
you might get stopped.
They'll shut you down.
Might
pretty
get
quickly.
stopped. They shut you down pretty quick.
That's why we didn't take Cyprian.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you know, last time Cyprian tried to get an extended tour of the White House.
Did you bring any Christmas cookies with you?
No, they didn't have any out.
No, really?
No
food,
no eggnog. Which
now, see, we just went to the tour. We didn't get to go to the party like you did. They don't give us refreshments. In fact, they tell us to make sure that we eat refreshments before we go tour.
That's cool.
No, it was really awesome.
Yeah,
it was really, really cool. And we lost count of how many Christmas trees there are inside the White House.
You know, there are, I think, the man in charge told me last week, I believe it's 18.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
And he had to go pick, the tree in the Blue Room, which is 18 feet
18
tall.
and a half feet tall, yeah.
Right. He had to go the 18-and-a-half-foot tall trees, he had to actually go pick himself.
Oh, really?
Right.
It's a big-ass tree.
Because most nurseries don't let them grow that big. There are very few nurseries that have trees that
I can
big.
imagine. You know you've got a big tree when we walk into the room, and the tree is so tall that it touches the ceiling, right? They've got it sort of attached at the ceiling. You know you got a big tree when you can do that.
Yeah. Beautiful job, though. Really beautiful. So Senator Sanders, Bernie Sanders, our guy, Bernie, up in New Hampshire yesterday, and he talked about pot, and he said he thought it'd leave it up to states. There shouldn't be any federal law, and he didn't want people's lives destroyed by just having a joint. And at which point, some of the people in the crowd there kind of went a little crazy.
They're a little high. You'll forgive them.
Just kidding.
Oh, how great is that?
They're a little high. I love it when Bernie says something and then he goes, "Just kidding."
Just kidding. Just kidding.
It was something else.
I got 2 pair of underwear.
That's right.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
That's right.
They're just a little high.
He's having a good time.
They're
He's trying to nail it down in New Hampshire, and he'll be back in Iowa this week as well, I think, before he takes a little Christmas break. On today's show, it's a Tuesday, so Arthur Delaney, yes. Igor Volsky, yes. And Keith Mestrich, the head of Amalgamated Bank, will be along as well. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. All right, so who was the biggest liar of the year, according to PolitiFact? We know PolitiFact. They debunk several political statements. Who's the biggest liar of the year?
Biggest liar of the year.
According to PolitiFact.
Carly Fiorina.
No. You're not far off, though. Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump has been... so what they did at PolitiFact, they rated 76% of Trump's statements as mostly false, or pants on fire out of 77 different statements that they checked. So 76% of those statements turned out to be completely not true.
It was 76 out of 77.
Well, it's 76% of the 77 facts that they checked.
Got it. Right.
So they say no other politician has had as many statements rated so far down the dial. They said that the biggest lie from the Trump campaign was the one where he claimed that there was video evidence showing thousands of Muslims celebrating the 9/11 attacks in New Jersey. There has been no evidence. They say that has little to no basis in fact. So Donald Trump is your liar of the year and owner of the lie of the year. So congratulations.
Carly can't be far behind.
She can't be far
Ben
behind.
Carson.
Or Ben Carson. That's right. Good point. There aren't a lot of good reasons to go to SeaWorld anymore. We know that they treat their animals poorly, but yesterday there was a whole new reason to not go to SeaWorld as patrons got on a ride called the Sky Tower, which is basically just one of those big Space Needle type things where it just takes you way up high, right? It's a little ride you go on inside of SeaWorld. Well, it malfunctioned yesterday, and 50 people got stuck 200 feet above the ground. And they got stuck there for about 3 hours. 3 hours they were at SeaWorld. The ride goes all the way up as high as 400 feet. And the whole point is you can see the entire theme park from up there. Whatever. And so it got stuck about halfway. They had to get a crane situation, so it came down in a cage. It had to start lifting people out. It was a whole thing. Yeah, a total mess.
You want to know how slow of a news day it was yesterday? This was breaking news, and they had live coverage of it on all 3 networks.
Oh, my God.
Yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
Well, they were hoping that something horrible would happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess this is why. Bad news for Chipotle again. Yesterday, the Center for Disease Control announced that they are investigating a whole new batch of E. coli outbreaks that could be linked to Chipotle. I know this is hard for you to hear, Bill.
Oh, boy.
I know how much you love Chipotle.
Well, I've been going to District Taco lately, man.
Yeah, I would too. The CDC says that there's a recent batch of E. coli cases linked to Chipotle. These are all cases coming from Kansas, North Dakota, and 3 different ones in Oklahoma. So there's 5 total. 1 in Kansas, 1 in North Dakota, 1 and 3 in Oklahoma. All 5 of these people said that they ate at Chipotle the week before they got sick with E. coli. So stay tuned. More problems for Chipotle.
That's serious. They are a great chain and a big chain. And
revolutionized the way that people eat.
Absolutely.
In this country.
And every time I've been there, I've always enjoyed their food and their burrito bowls. But I'd say they have a little PR problem right now and a little public health problem. They better get it fixed.
Got to get it under control.
They're going to be out of business.
Got to get it under control.
You got it. Hey, a little update on the debate. Yesterday we said about 6.7 million or something like that. I saw there's an updated figure of those who watched the Democratic debate Saturday night was 7.85 million, actually.
Oh, there you go.
Almost 8 million people. I don't know how. I don't know why. I don't know. Can't believe that many people didn't have something better to do. But at any rate, it still is half what the first Democratic debate was and 1/3 of what the Republican debates have been. So the point is still that it was a huge mistake and a deliberate decision on the part of the DNC to hold that debate on a Saturday night before Christmas when they knew that nobody would watch it. And that's exactly, what the Clinton campaign wanted. The DNC did it for them, in my humble opinion. But the big political news of the day, other than the fact that Donald Trump has been named the Liar of the Year, as Peter just told us, is then now there are only 12. Yep, Senator Lindsey Graham yesterday bowing out of the Republican race. We knew it was inevitable. We knew it was only a matter of time. Weren't sure that he would be the next one to fall, but yesterday was the deadline for having your name on the ballot in South Carolina primary or not having your name on the ballot. And Lindsey Graham, understandably, did not want to go through the embarrassment of being on the ballot in South Carolina, his home state, and getting clobbered, which he would have done. There was no way he was going to win his home state. So he did the right thing. He dropped out, and he did it by video, making the announcement to the world and to his few supporters.
Today, I'm suspending my campaign for president. I want to thank everyone who's taken this journey with me. You have honored me with your support. I believe we've run a campaign you can be proud of.
So what do you think of Lindsey? Is this going to make any difference at all? Did he provide anything substantive, anything positive to the campaign? 866-55-PRESS, you know the toll-free number. After making that video announcement, Lindsey Graham went on. By the way, this also was news on all three networks. I noticed yesterday they were breaking in for the big breaking news. Lindsey Graham dropping out, as if his dropping out is going to make any big difference. But he went on CNN and was asked the inevitable question: so why'd you quit?
Because I've hit a wall here. My campaign has come to a point where I need to think about getting out and helping somebody else.
Yep. Get out and help somebody else. But I got to tell you, first of all, I've known Lindsey Graham a long time. He was the ultimate hardliner in this race. I think in this lineup. I mean, Lindsey Graham would have ground troops in Syria in a New York second. I mean, that was his whole thing. He said we got to take it to ISIS, and that means we got to go full bore. He, like John McCain, never saw a country he didn't want to start a war in. So I totally disagree with that, with his position, particularly on foreign policy. But at the same time, he made a lot of sense about other issues. Remember, right after 2012, it was Lindsey Graham who said, look, we got beat badly. And we got beat badly particularly because we lost the Latino community. And that's because we are so bad on immigration reform. And he told the Republican Party back in 2012, he hasn't changed his position, that unless we not just support immigration reform, unless we take the lead, unless we show the world, and particularly the Latino community, that we are way out in front for comprehensive immigration reform, he said, we will never win the White House again. This party will be in a death spiral. That was Lindsey Graham talking about the Republican Party. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And in this campaign, again, despite his position on Syria and ISIS, remember, it was Lindsey Graham who was the first one to take on Donald Trump and the strongest one to take on Donald Trump. He told CNN, what, make America great again? Here's how they're going to do that.
And you know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell.
Tell Donald Trump to go to hell. And as far as Donald Trump and the things he was saying about the Muslim community, particularly banning on Muslims from coming in the United States, Lindsey Graham nailed it at this last debate, just December 15. A week ago today.
Please understand we're in a war that we can't afford to lose. And what he said about banning Muslims coming here to America has made us all less safe, and it's the worst possible thing he could do in this war. He clearly doesn't understand this war and how to win it.
Doesn't understand this war, how to win it, has made us less safe. And remember, on Donald Trump, in terms of, we can't criticize him because he may leave the Republican Party. Lindsey Graham says, I don't care if he leaves the party. He said, I'd rather, here's the quote, I would rather lose with somebody else than try to win with Donald Trump. That profile and courage right there.
It's a great way to
it was a Politico that did this little montage. Lindsey did. He was the funniest and had the best liners. The reporters loved covering him because he was loose as a goose. And here's a little montage of Lindsey Graham's best one-liners all put together.
The greatest character in Bond history is Pussy Galore. She was like incredibly talented. Started drinking together. That's the first thing I'm going to do as president. We're going to drink more. I wasn't the best law student. By the end of this debate, it'd be the most time I've ever spent in any library. I'm not afraid of a guy riding around on a horse without his shirt. The guy's got a pair of twos, and we got a full house, and he's walking all over Obama. One, thanks CNN for having people at this debate. I've never met an illegal Canadian. Princess Buttercup would not like this.
I'm not afraid of a guy riding on a horse,
without his shirt on.
His shirt on. So much for you, Pootie. Yeah,
I can't tell you how much I love Pussy Galore.
Right.
Just vivacious.
He's talking about drinking.
Full of laugh.
Remember, he told that group down in South Carolina, even before he announced for president, I think. Yeah, we're going to drink more.
We're going to drink more.
Yeah,
we're going to drink more in this White House.
That's what this country needs. I got to tell you, Lindsey Graham, give him his credit. He brought a lot to the race. We're going to miss him. 866-55-PRESS. Your comments on the senator from South Carolina, or where's all of his support go? Talk about that when we come back.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, Republicans adjusting to the departure of Lindsey Graham. With all due respect, I don't think it'll make a lot of difference because I don't think he had a whole lot of supporters as reflected in the polls. But his presence will be missed, and in some cases, his sanity will be missed. Jim, up in Massachusetts. What do you say, Jim?
Hey, how are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Right.
I'd like to comment on Lindsey Graham first.
Yes.
And I'd like to say that, while I would not support him for president, he was a rational voice in the Republican Party.
Yes.
As regards foreign affairs, foreign intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's a good point. None of us, I think, would have voted for Lindsey Graham, but you're watching the Republican Party slowly kill itself, right? When you see them pushing a guy like Lindsey Graham out of the way for guys like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump.
And the other thing, Jim, is, I mean, you may disagree with his conclusions, but he definitely knows foreign policy, right?
Yeah.
In the military, been on the committee, knows his ground, and I got to it makes more sense than most
This
of them up there.
is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow, CrimAdvisor.com has all this information.
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now. Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, December 22nd. Can you believe it? Here we are. It's The Bill Press Show and the whole team here. Celebrating 3 days before Christmas, I guess. And we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees. All of those men and women who who run our federal agencies on a day-to-day basis. We all depend on them, sometimes take them for granted. Now's the time to salute them, thank them for the sponsorship of the program, and congratulate them for the good work under President J. David Cox. You can find out all about them at afge.org. On a Tuesday, we welcome to the program our good friend Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post. Arthur, how are you?
I'm great. Good morning.
Good to see you. We've been talking about Lindsey Graham, mourning the departure of Lindsey Graham from the presidential field. Not that it will make that much difference, and not that we agreed on him on all issues, but on some things he made a lot of sense. Would you agree?
He sounded way less insane than Donald Trump does. Donald Trump's a birther who says vaccines cause autism, and Lindsey Graham didn't say that, so Lindsey Graham was like a saint.
And Lindsey Graham said, as we mentioned earlier, on immigration reform, if the Republicans didn't lead, they could never win the White House again. I mean, he's...
Lindsey Graham also wanted to start a ground war in the Middle East.
Yes, let's not forget that.
So there are a lot of different things about Lindsey Graham to like and not like.
And
if you're a Democratic voter who has no stake in whether Lindsey Graham...
But I thought his best moment was when he just said, why are we afraid of Donald Trump leaving the party? I hope he does leave the party. Get him out of the party. I don't want him in the party. He's just, yeah.
Well, now Donald Trump's the front runner and Lindsey Graham is going back to the Senate.
And now there are 12 left. I thought for sure that Jim Gilmore or George Pataki might drop out before Lindsey Graham. But
that would make a lot of sense. You could see that Lindsey Graham was very emotional in the last undercard debate. I don't know. I didn't know what to make of it, but there was like a strange intensity to his way of talking.
There was so much frustration in the last debate on his face, right? When someone else would talk, he just would get pained. You know, when Santorum or any of these other guys would talk, he would just get so sort of just resigned to the fact that he could be a little bit of a different kind of candidate. It's just never going to.
But the reality that he faced, he sort of indicated that yesterday, was if he didn't get out yesterday, his name would have been on the South Carolina primary ballot, and that would have been a mortal embarrassment for his home state because he would have gotten shellacked. And
now that he's turned it in, the media gives him his halo.
Right.
Off you go.
So now he can.
God bless you.
Now he can. Now he can throw his support to somebody else. We don't know. But speaking of South Carolina, let's go down to we consider our spokesperson in South Carolina, from North Charleston. Here is Ike. Hello, Ike. How you doing? Happy holidays.
Good morning, Bill. It's a sad day here in South Carolina. I knew something was up yesterday. I was coming back towards the house, and I saw a big tow truck with a bus behind it on a hook. I thought it was one of our 30-year-old school buses, but turned out it was Lindsey Graham's campaign bus. It had like six mourners in cars and 3 others on mopeds following it to the junkyard. And by the way, Merry Christmas, and I appreciate that present that you sent me. I've never eaten at Chipotle, but I'm sure that
save it till Christmas Eve and open it then and eat it then. Yeah. Then you'll have a merry holiday.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Try the sofritas.
That's right.
You guys have a great one, too. And as far as Lindsey, I'm sure we'll see him on TV. It's no big deal.
All right.
That's right. Our daily Lindsey consumption won't change.
Thank you, Ike. Good to hear from you.
He'll be on the Sunday shows every Sunday.
You know it, yeah.
Yeah, so...
side by side with John McCain.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And they'll be taking they'll be able to take even more trips together now.
That's right.
Because Lindsey's got all that free time
now,
yeah. John McCain. Is he still alive?
Bill?
No.
Good grief.
Ask Sarah Palin. You don't know. Sarah Palin yesterday.
Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live joke. Yeah, I did see that.
Bill's not that cold.
Sarah Palin. God rest his soul, I think.
Probably. Who knows?
Right. Speaking of nothing, the debate Saturday night. I'm sure you had nothing better to do than to stay home and watch that.
I could have been watching an NFL football game. Mm-hmm. What is with these debates? The next one's in the middle of the playoffs during 2 football games. The DNC does not want this primary election.
Exactly.
They are trying to bury it so obviously.
Yes.
And there's this obscure spat over data.
Yeah.
Between the 2 main candidates,
what's
it's ridiculous.
The worst possible time we could? What's the least number of debates we could have, and what's the worst possible time we could schedule the debates? And that's what the DNC.
They could schedule it.
Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders are right.
Yeah, if they scheduled it at midnight, it would be too obvious. So they just put it on a Saturday at 9. And oh man, the debate itself, not incredibly interesting. And some people said it exposed differences on middle-class tax policy between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, but I don't know if that's true. I think that might have been there already.
I think that what it exposed is a difference in the issues that the candidates are talking about between the Republican debate and the Democratic debate.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Republicans are talking about killing women and children.
Right.
In war. And Democrats are talking about not doing that.
And about income inequality and about climate change and about...
No, they did not talk about climate change.
That's right, they didn't.
They didn't talk about that in either debate.
They should have.
Yeah, but no, instead we got a question about, gee, what would your spouse be like?
Yeah.
Which I understand you want to hear about Bill Clinton, but then we had to hear about Martin O'Malley's spouse.
And about Jane. And yeah, right.
Strange.
No, it's crazy. They always ask those off-the-wall questions like that, which I think are total waste of time. Maybe the I know you and HuffPost Hill have talked about the fact that there was an empty podium at one shot.
That was by far the most compelling moment of the night. Hillary Clinton didn't come back from the bathroom break or whatever was going on. Donald Trump is calling this quote unquote disgusting. Trump supporters, man.
Oh yeah, they'll stop at nothing.
Wow.
Don't you think that could be better planned? I mean, if you're doing a live TV show and you want people to have enough time to take, then you make sure there's a bathroom available, or you run enough commercials so that they have enough time. I mean,
it was flabbergasting. You already
I mean, seriously, highly unprofessional.
You're
not on her part, on ABC's part.
No, this whole charade is organized to not hurt Hillary Clinton. And how do they come back from a bathroom break without Hillary Clinton? This whole thing is to help Hillary Clinton become president.
Yeah, and
they forgot to have Hillary Clinton on stage. Very strange.
Very strange indeed.
And no, I do not blame Hillary Clinton. I don't know what was going on, but good grief, what a weird thing to happen.
You were saying, Peter, that Gawker.
Yeah, Gawker had a piece about how this really speaks to how well of a leader she'll be, right? If you want to be able to lead the free world and be commander-in-chief, you should be able to hold it.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is a little odd.
It's basically what Donald Trump is saying.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, that it is something that Trump is throwing.
Well, Donald Trump said, "I thought she quit."
Yeah.
That's all right. What's going on in Flint, Michigan?
Oh, it's a disaster.
This is terrifying.
I came of age when lead poisoning was a thing of the past, and the dangers of this deadly neurotoxin weren't very high in the public imagination because I think people thought it had been dealt with. So what happened in Flint is lead poisoning of children.
In drinking water?
In the water. So the city of Flint voted some years ago to switch to a new water system because Detroit's water, which they've been getting, was really expensive. Their new system wasn't ready, so an emergency manager installed by Governor Rick Snyder said, okay, in the meantime, when we can't keep paying for this Detroit water, we're going to get water from the Flint River, which they should have known was because of its chemistry is more corrosive. The water itself, leaving the plant, was okay, but its corrosivity caused the old lead pipes throughout Flint, of which there are many, to leach lead into the water. And they knew it was happening. And they had their own data of children's blood lead levels showing its spike, right after they made the change. And that's the story that came out yesterday, that I wrote yesterday. They had this data, and they sort of internally made up other reasons for what had happened. And so it wasn't until a month later that a local pediatrician showed the spike in kids' blood levels, that the emergency was declared. The people were told to stop drinking the water, and Rick Snyder signed legislation to switch back to Detroit.
This is amazing. And so now, where is Detroit, Flint right now? I mean, are they?
It'll take months for the water coming out of the taps to go back to normal. People are buying water. FEMA is delivering water, and the mayor declared another emergency after the county already had a month ago or 2 months ago, in an effort to get attention. And she's a new mayor, and she won sort of because of this scandal. And people in the political system, they're like, what is this declaration supposed to do? You're not following our formal protocol. But she succeeded in getting massive additional national attention. So it continues to be a developing story.
Is it just that one city?
Yeah, it's just Flint.
Right.
So it's potentially, we don't know how many kids it is, but the most sinister thing about lead poisoning, which is typically from paint or dust, not as frequently water, but the most sinister thing about it is, it drops your IQ. You never get those IQ points back. It stunts your growth if you're a little kid.
Yeah.
You won't grow. A whole lifetime, the whole arc of your life is changed, and you can't prove it. There's not like a light that goes on that says, I got lead poisoned. You could be diagnosed with ADHD in 7 years, and no one can prove it was because of the lead. So it's just diminished the life chances for thousands of people, and that's it.
Yeah.
no getting it back.
Lots of questions, but hold on there until we take a quick break and come back with Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post. And if you're out in Flint, Michigan, or anywhere nearby, have a comment or question or your story, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour, Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post. Igor Volsky from Think Progress coming up next at the top of the hour. We're talking about this incredible story out of Flint, Michigan, where the entire community, based on a dumb decision, I guess, by locals and the governors together, right?
But this is dispute. I mean, I think everyone was involved in the decision, but the finger pointing afterward, the emergency manager's like, no, it was the city council. Implausibly, right. The city is saying, no, it was you guys.
But with all the industry along that area, that they would take water out of the river and think that would be a good source for drinking water?
Ford wouldn't even use this water in their plant because it was rusting their parts.
Holy cow, really?
Oh, yeah. So let's let the kids
let's have people drink it.
Let's say hello to Jim calling from Flint, Michigan. Hello, Jim.
Good morning, Bill. Really good to speak with you, and I'm really glad that you are covering this topic because
it is a disaster. As your guest has indicated, lead, poisoning was supposed to be a thing of the past, but obviously that is not the case. The thing that I really believe is being overlooked, or at least certainly not emphasized sufficiently, is the fact that Flint has been under the, I call it dictatorship of a so-called emergency financial manager that the Republican-led Michigan legislature, with Governor Snyder's blessings, have created these emergency financial managers that take away local democracy. And it was that person who made the decision. And the problem is that the Flint water is not being treated with a substance that prevents or that actually coats the water pipes on the inside so that the lead from the pipes cannot leach into the water. The Detroit water system does have that substance added. And that's the problem right there. And the continuing problem is that now that they have switched back, it's going to take a while for that substance to recoat the inside linings of those water pipes, so that Arthur, the problem is continuing.
Yeah, Arthur, you were saying that. Hold on, Jim. That it would take at least half a year, right? In your story, you
because this coating builds up inside pipes that prevents the lead of the pipe from getting in your water, and that's what has been basically taken away. Now, Jim, I wonder what your water is like.
Well, I personally do not live in the city. I live in one of the surrounding communities, but I have several friends and family members who do. And they basically have been almost evicted from their homes because, my gosh, they're afraid to use it. And trust me, I understand why that would be the case.
Now, we've interviewed some Flint families. They say the water is still gross. When they made this change immediately, before people knew about the neurotoxins, they're like, hey, this water's brown and it's disgusting and my hair's falling out. And that's still the case because you can't buy enough bottled water to take a shower on a daily basis. So people are still having to use the water even though they know it's this bad. And they could have treated it, and they were supposed to have treated it to reduce its the corrosion. And Jim, that's what they failed to do.
This emergency manager, right, is not accountable to anybody, right?
Only to Governor Snyder.
There you go.
To Governor Snyder. Yeah. And it's disgusting because this started in Muskegon, which is on the far west side of the state, right on the shores of Lake Michigan, where they took over this municipality, and in the process of that, sold off a private park that had been donated to the city for almost a century, and they sold it off for a private golf course where only the rich can play. And the worst part of it is that all of these financial managers are almost exclusively in predominantly minority resident areas.
Yeah, and this is leads right back to Rick Snyder. Hey, Jim, thanks so much for the call. This is a good story. I mean, a horrible story, Arthur, but I haven't heard anywhere else except from you. So good work, and good work to Huffington Post. You're going to stay on it.
We're doing a longer piece, and we're covering the developments as they pop up every day.
Keep us up to date.
You bet.
Merry Christmas, Arthur.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Okay. And we'll see you early in 2016.
That's right.
All right. Happy New Year, too. We'll be right back.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At 3 minutes before the top of the hour, Igor Volsky in the next hour, at the top of the next hour, and then Keith Mestrich, president of Amalgamated Bank, Peter Ogburn.
Okay, so the Miss Universe pageant.
Yes.
Steve Harvey accidentally revealed the wrong winner the other night. We talked about that yesterday. But we do know that this used to be owned, the Miss Universe pageant used to be owned by Donald Trump. Right. So yesterday, of course, Donald Trump had to weigh in on it. He said, very sad what happened last night at the Miss Universe pageant. I sold it 6 months ago for a record price. This would have never happened. And then he went on to say, what happened to that girl from Colombia was devastating. I'll tell you what I think. Make them co-winners. So he thinks they should be co-winners because Steve
Harvey
name.
Screwed up. Yeah. Let me tell you.
That ain't gonna happen.
Good job. Oh my! Let's go back to the Igor Volsky
Show.
One of the most profound movements, and one of the first real social movement in American history, was all about slavery, and that's labor. And it was about creating a different kind of democracy, different kind of way of thinking about the economy. And I think these battles aren't over. The African American portion of American wealth as a whole is 3% today. And the last time it was 3% was in 1868, 3 years after slavery. African Americans going back to before the Civil War, and the earliest African American spokespersons and writers and leaders like Frederick Douglass and others argued that the fundamental feature of the American economy was dehumanization. And they also argued that you can't have a democratic constitution and an economic system that degrades and exploits people. Many of the radical Republicans who fought for the Civil War and in the Civil War believed the same thing. I think the true intent of the 13th Amendment wasn't just to eliminate chattel slavery. It was to eliminate all forms of economic oppression and create what we would now call living wages for everybody. I think that was the true intent. But these things were overthrown. After the Civil War, there was a counter-revolution, Lincoln's assassination, the destruction of Reconstruction. We got segregation, which wasn't just about making white people feel superior, it was about a cheap labor force, which persisted. The 1963 March on Washington, where everyone sees Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Well, King wasn't head of that march. A. Philip Randolph was, the first black trade union president. The demand of the march was for jobs and freedom. Jobs came even before freedom. That sort of dream of a new kind of economy was tightly connected with thinking about voting rights and a new kind of politics. And when African Americans said we refuse to work as basically semi-slave laborers with no rights and no voting rights and no protections, and my generation said we're not going to do that work that our parents did, then employers started bringing undocumented immigrants into the country to work with no rights and no protections. And when the government said, well, what are we going to do with all these young folks like me who don't want to do this kind of semi-slave work? They didn't reform the economy. They said, let's lock them up. And we got mass incarceration. And so I think all of these things are related to our history. All of these things are part of the challenge of changing the system. And the system connects these things.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
And the liar of the year is, hands down, Donald Trump, according to PolitiFact. Most of his statements being false, mostly false, or liar, liar, pants on fire. Now it's official. We knew that. Hey, hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Very special Tuesday, December 22nd. Great to see you today, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. You're part of it, you know, just by listening on your local progressive talk radio station or watching us on Free Speech TV. You join the team. Now, you'll really be a member of the team if you just weigh in on the issues of the day by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And we know why you're tuned in on this Tuesday, like every Tuesday, right at this hour, to see our friend from Think Progress Igor Volsky. Prince Igor, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Surprised to
see you.
learn that it was Trump. I thought it'd be you.
A liar of the year?
Yeah, I didn't know. He beat you out.
I'm a truth teller. No, you know who he beat out was hard. Carly Fiorina.
That is hard. That's a tough race to beat.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Trump's a winner, though. We know that.
Right. But he won because of mainly his claim of the video about the Muslims celebrating in New Jersey on 9/11.
That was a big one.
Then there's, of course, her video, which we still haven't seen, of the Planned Parenthood video that, that's neither one of them. Neither video exists.
After the Democratic debate this past Saturday, all the papers tried to run fact checks on the candidates, and they were so pathetic. It's like they got nothing on the Republican debate. The Republican debate, you can run fact check for pages.
Right. Yeah, right.
Here, you got like 3 claims that are maybe kind of wrong. It's really remarkable.
Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson. Hello, guys.
Hey.
Yep, good morning.
All right. Good to have you with us. The whole team. Ray Rogers as well. Here, remember, take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding on the job as our videographer this morning. Igor, 911 is a great service to save countless lives.
Of course.
To be used only in emergencies when you need help. Some people have a different definition of what's an emergency and when you need help, like this guy from down in Waynesboro, Virginia, as reported on WHSB.
Tracking crime where you live, a Waynesboro man is in trouble with the law after police say he dialed 911 while apparently high and asked for rolling papers. Police say 24-year-old Kyle Dustin Head called 911 on Thursday morning. They believe he was under the influence of marijuana when he asked a telecommunicator for rolling papers. Police say they noticed a green leafy substance on his clothing, in his right ear, and all over his car.
And his right ear is my favorite part of
He's
that.
doing that marijuana wrong if he's putting it in his ear.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, you're not supposed to put it in your ear.
You don't put it in your ear.
He needed more than rolling paper.
Yeah. In lieu of rolling papers, he put it in his ear.
I know.
Hey, man, I got an idea. Hear me out on this one.
At least he didn't light it up in his ear.
Yeah.
Well, what, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, what an idiot. So, here we go. At 10 minutes after the hour, so Igor with us for the first half hour. Keith Mestrich, who's the founder and the president, rather, of Amalgamated Banks, been around for a long time, actually, will be here at the half hour. Chris Van Cleve from CBS News at the top of the next hour. We'll dive right in, Igor, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. So here in the United States, gay men are not allowed to donate blood. That is until yesterday.
Oh.
That is until yesterday. The FDA actually said that they had made the decision to reverse a policy that banned gay men from donating blood. It's been a ban for 30 years.
Yeah.
Blood donations were not allowed.
Since the beginning of the AIDS crisis.
Yeah,
sure.
Blood donations were not allowed by gay men, and they now say that they can. The only stipulation is that they say that they would request that the men have 12 months of abstinence before donating blood, which is a bad year, I guess.
That's a serious commitment.
You really got to be committed to donating
blood donation.
Oh, why don't they just have a blood test? Why 12 months?
12 months after their last sexual contact is what they asked for. But
so good news, but not perfect.
Yeah, good news, bad news. So if you can manage to go that long, then you can donate blood. Yeah. Congratulations,
Tim Gunn. I'm looking at you.
Yeah, right. So there you go. That's a good story, I think. Congratulations to Chelsea Clinton and her husband Mark. They announced yesterday that she is in the family way.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
She is. She's got the swell belly. Yes, indeed. She is pregnant with their second child. She made it official on Twitter. She said she made it official on Twitter, and then Hillary Clinton weighed in again and said, "Your father and I could not be happier for you and Mark and little baby Charlotte. We're so excited to meet our second grandchild there."
So the mother
baby
is running for president, a second grandchild coming. This is the ultimate in family planning.
Look, here's the deal. The baby,
seriously,
the baby.
Don't think this was planned?
Oh yeah, the baby is expected in summer. So by the time the election rolls around, it's going to be peak cute baby, right? Like they're going to lose the whole like ugly newborn thing, which all newborns have, and it's going to be an adorable baby child by the time that the election rolls around. This is brilliant.
Who's the consultant who advised that?
This was brilliant.
I want to know.
Yeah. Now, how about this for a big idea? Daniel Giusti is...
Pop that, Bernie Sanders.
That's right. Good luck.
Right. Daniel Giusti is a cook. He's a chef here. He was a chef here in Washington, D.C., and he left to go serve as chef de cuisine at Noma, the world's greatest restaurant. It's the best restaurant, according to all the guides. Right? This is the one in Copenhagen that everybody says is so wonderful. He is leaving after being chef de cuisine for 3 years, and he's coming back to Washington, D.C., not to run a restaurant. He is coming back to rethink and change school lunches.
Oh.
He wants to completely change the way that Americans view school lunches. The problem is that there's just so many bad options for school lunches. He's leaving the fine dining institution altogether. Noma, by the way, a restaurant bill can top $800 for 2 diners, and he's now hoping to figure out how to maximize $3.07 per child. That is the amount that the U.S. Department of Agriculture reimburses schools for every free lunch that is served. So he wants to figure out a new way to serve better, healthier, smarter free lunches to children. And he's walking away from fine dining to do it.
Well, good luck to him.
Good luck to him.
Good luck to him.
Good for him and good luck to him, but I'd say
that's a tough hill to climb.
Right.
I mean, depending on how he does, it might go back to school.
Yeah, right.
No, but
imagine eating food from Noma at school lunches, right?
So, Igor, we are moving in close soon. We got to get over Christmas, but then we're done with 2015. Looking back, as you have at Think Progress, there are some important accomplishments.
There are some big progressive wins this year. Top of the list, which I think working people have been kind of hoping and waiting for a long time, is you've had 9 states increase the minimum wage. This has been obviously a national priority for Democrats in Congress, but the fight moved to the states because, hey, Congress isn't doing anything. Then you have, of course, 9 states.
And several cities,
and
too,
several cities, including Los Angeles, Seattle, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Right.
Of course, also the president extended the overtime rule. That rule is now being drafted. That would increase overtime protections to nearly 5 million workers. Hopefully out very soon. Over the summer, you remember several Supreme Court wins. One for marriage equality, where marriage is now legal in all 50 states.
Was that this year?
That was this year, absolutely. And also the Affordable Care Act, upheld by the Supreme Court for a second time. And now, Bill, you have 16 million Americans who have health care coverage under the law, and the uninsurance rate is down to an all-time low of below 10%. Below 10%.
You mean, yes, it's 5%.
The number of people who don't have insurance is under 10% for the first time in a long, long, long time.
I thought you were talking about the unemployment rate, which is at 5%.
Which is at 5%. That's right. We have to get the insurance rate to meet the unemployment rate.
Right. So was it for progressives? There was a lot to celebrate.
A lot to celebrate. And I'll just mention 2 more really quickly. Obviously, you have the entire world unanimously agreeing to fight climate change in Paris. Just earlier this month. That's a big deal. And of course, if those agreements stay strong, if every 5 years they increase their efforts in that direction, that's a good thing. And, of course, the Iran deal, which Iran is very, very busily now implementing because they hope to lift the sanctions at the beginning of next year so that the governing party can do well in the elections.
Well, it ties very much into Friday's news conference with President Obama, which was essentially a victory lap, right? And Josh Earnest had done this the day before. He sort of ticked off, okay, we're getting close to the end of 2015. But when you look back, they said, oh, this guy's a lame duck. He's not going to be able to get anything done. Well, now let's look back at 2015, which the president then himself did on Friday. I don't have all of my notes in front of me, but some of the ones that he mentioned were ones that you mentioned. First, the Iran nuclear deal.
Yes, big legacy deal for him.
You mentioned Paris and climate change, which wouldn't have happened without him.
American leadership was key.
Cuba is one that the president
that's
mentioned.
right.
Yeah,
I was
opening up of Cuba.
You know, I live close to the Cuban embassy, and I often walk my dog. Well, now I have 2 dogs, but then I just had 1 dog this past couple of days. I was walking Sasha up 16th Street, and the Cuban embassy was having a holiday party. I wasn't invited, but I looked in. It looked very nice, and I thought, my God, this is for the first time in a long, long time they were able to host this here.
Don't feel badly. I was invited either. Peter Kornblue was our guest.
Even though you have the flag here.
We have the flag here. We still weren't
Did they
invited.
not know about the flag?
But Peter Kornblue was here last week, who had just come from the party the day before, right, and told us all about it. But anyhow, that's certainly on the list of progressive. And the president, he did mention TPP, which I would not put on the list, but in terms of things, this is a little different from your list.
Yeah.
In terms of things that he wanted to get done, and he did get done.
Yeah,
you got to put.
And
that.
he also mentioned Obamacare in that presser, that they had this past enrollment period a very, very, very high interest in people signing up in the last couple of days.
Right. So looking back, it was not a bad year, particularly given the fact that it's the first of the last 2 years of his presidency, which is typically a do nothing, get nothing done period, right? And given the fact that he still has a Republican House and a Republican Senate to contend with, so he couldn't get much help from them, although he did on TPP. But all the rest they opposed, but he still got done.
And he also got done in terms of things. He got done the Clean Power Act, which Republicans have been trying to repeal in every which way, which regulates the emissions from existing power plants. That's existing and new power plants. That's a big, big deal as well.
All right. So, it's nice to get to the end of the year and say it wasn't a total bust.
Great. It was okay. And well, you're entering a year now where it's all going to be politics, and you're probably not going to get anything done. So,
well, that was interesting.
Savor this.
That was the last point that the president made on Friday, which was basically, you ain't seen nothing yet, to quote Ronald Reagan. He said he intends to go, I forget exactly the phrase used. It was an interesting phrase, but basically, he didn't say this, but he indicated he's going to go full bore in 2016. He's not going to give up in 2016. There's a lot more he wants to get done, and he's going to go flat out.
And can I add, I think what he's alluding to here is guns. They've been working for a long time in the White House. Additional executive action the administration can take to expand background checks on their own, so that the people who sell a lot of guns but aren't licensed dealers are redefined as licensed dealers, and thus they have to background check all the purchasers who come to them. That's going to be a big, big deal
and
as
will
well.
Probably have to be done by executive order, but stretch that as much as you can.
Yeah.
There you go. Some insights into both 2015 and what's coming up in 2016 from Igor Volsky, Think Progress. You want to add to the list? Things that progressives can be proud of in 2015, 866-55-PRESS. Our toll-free number. We'll talk to you on the other side.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we're not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia. Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand?
This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, what impact is the slight rise in interest rates going to have on the economy and on all of you? Keith Mesrich, president of Amalgamated Bank, joins us at the half hour to talk about that. Right now visiting with a good friend, Igor Volsky from Think Progress, thinkprogress.org, with a little breaking news on the political front.
Okay, so our friend Susan Page from USA Today breaks this story about John Huntsman possibly dipping his toes into the 2016 pool. Quote, Huntsman says he's getting a lot of encouragement to launch another White House bid from Republicans concerned about Donald Trump.
Forget it. What? Don't you think?
It's hard to see how a guy who believes in science and evolution and climate change can win a Republican primary, but he is kind of the antidote to Donald Trump. He's a reasonable guy who does have a conservative record in Utah where he was governor, but he was also Obama's ambassador to China, so maybe more moderate on that front. I mean, if Republican voters want someone who could actually probably govern, then John Huntsman is their candidate. I don't think they want that this campaign season.
No, I think he's too intelligent and too rational and too moderate to ever get the Republican nomination.
I mean, there was zero interest in 2012 for his campaign after like zero.
If you want to know how John Huntsman's campaign would go this time around, just look at Jeb Bush. Really, I think.
Did you see that Politico article this morning? He's catching fire in New Hampshire. 200 people at his rally.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Good luck.
Bernie has 25,000 right there.
Yeah.
But the big impact, of course, Igor, the race will never be the same without Lindsey Graham.
Yes. Sad news yesterday. Lindsey Graham, polling at 1% in South Carolina, is throwing his one voter to, I don't know who'd benefit. If anyone.
All the stories about the other candidates scrambling to line up his supporter.
Yeah. Making calls. Trying to secure donors.
But as much as we laugh about him, I'm going to miss Lindsey Graham. We've talked about it so much this morning. His hardline stance on sending ground troops to Syria, forget about it.
War with 4 countries.
Right. But otherwise, on immigration reform and taking on Donald Trump, he made a lot of sense.
He did make a lot of sense, and he was really the attraction at that undercard debate. And I'll tell you why. In terms of his foreign policy, which many people disagree with across the country, and it's kind of that old school Bush interventionism, and it's an argument and a debate the Republican Party has to have. Are you a Lindsey Graham? Are you a Rand Paul? Are you somewhere in the middle?
Right.
He inserted those issues into the conversation, and that was a big value add.
That's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Very much like John McCain did.
And he tore the party away from Rand, which was his goal.
But I think he did himself. He's a better senator now.
Yeah,
I think having
definitely.
run for president. Igor, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 33 minutes after the hour. It is the Bill Press Show on this Tuesday, December 22nd. Good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And we're here with you across this great land of ours on your local radio station and on Free Speech TV. That's Direct TV, of course. And we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers. Boy, they do a great job, the Teachers of America. And the members of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten. We salute them, thank them for the sponsorship of the show, and direct you to the website to find out more, aft.org. The Fed making a big but long-expected move last week to raise interest rates just a little bit for the first time since the crash of 2008. Keith Mestridge is here, the the president, and has been around a long time before you, right? President and the CEO of a great institution, Amalgamated Bank, the first one to adopt a minimum wage for all of their employees. Keith, it's good to see you. Happy holidays.
Happy first day of winter, Bill.
Yeah, that's right. It is the first day of winter.
Climate change is real, huh?
Do you know what? I didn't realize that. It is the first day of winter, but you'd never know it.
It's going to be 73 degrees in Washington on Christmas Day.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's
insane.
It's crazy.
What is going on?
I don't know.
Yeah, all right. Well, happy first day of winter, indeed. What does this raising this higher interest rates mean? First of all, it's just a little bit, right?
It's a tiny little bit. We don't know yet. I mean, so the federal funds rate, which is the rate that the Fed charges banks to borrow money, went up. The prime rate went up. Mortgage rates went down. Treasury rates went down. Mortgage rates bumped all over. We lowered interest rates yesterday, so I don't think we know yet what the real impact will be here.
So everybody is adjusting in different ways.
Yeah.
If they're charging banks more to raise their money, then how can you lower interest rates?
Well, so here's the beneficiary of the interest rate rise. It's the banks, and there's no question. So most banks have some floating rate loans that went up immediately, so banks will earn more money on that. And it will be a while before you see most banks start to raise interest rates for their depositors, and that spread will widen, and that's the real impact of this raise. We raised rates yesterday for our CD holders, so that we are going to pass on some of the increases to that. So our real savers will start to see some benefit, but we've seen very, very little movement in rates in the market.
Because CDs have been paying 1-2% lately.
It depends on the length of time, but the most aggressive 1-year rate out there is 1%. So one of the benefits, if we see some interest rate increase, should be savers, especially elderly savers who tend to keep their money in the bank. Hopefully we'll start to see some increase in what they've been able to earn on their money, keep up with inflation.
Okay. So for people who are looking to buy a house, is this a time to buy, or does this help make it more attractive to buy right now?
So I don't think a 0.25% increase in interest rates will really make that much of a difference in the housing market. The real impact will be to see what happens with the Fed does in the next 6 months and 9 months, and most people still anticipate additional rate increases. We'll see. I'm not convinced that will happen. If I were a home buyer, I would, and was thinking about a home purchase in the next year, I would get much more aggressive now, because it's probable that rates will go up. So locking in at 25 basis points or half a percentage point lower than what rates are going to be in the future is probably smart.
Yeah, right. Boy, things have changed so much. I mean, I remember when if you could get 10%, you were it was considered lucky, right?
I remember my parents selling a house and having to buy a house at 18% interest rates at one point. So it has really come down. It has really come down. And if you time the market the right way, you could get a 30-year fixed mortgage sometime last year, 3.25%.
Is it amazing, man?
You can do it at 4. You can do it at 4 now, Bill. So now's the time.
Yeah. Can you imagine 18%?
18% during the Carter administration, when inflation was running crazy and we had the impact of the oil crisis. Interest rates had gone almost to 20% in this country.
What is the message that the Fed is sending when they raise rates like this?
Well, I think one thing that they're saying is that the economy is in good shape. Right.
Yeah.
The Fed is saying we think unemployment has recovered. We all know that there's still structural underemployment in the country, and we have to deal with that. But I think the Fed is saying the economy is in pretty good shape. They're a little concerned about it overheating and seeing too much inflation. I think what they're trying to do is figure out how the dollar doesn't get too strong and impact some American businesses, particularly manufacturing. And I think they're beginning the process of trying to think about how to balance the economy 7 years after the greatest recession of our time and the possibility of the economy almost imploding. It's time to start getting back to some regular economic conditions now.
So they're saying that things are. It's a sort of statement of confidence in the direction the economy is going, right?
It is, but I think there's warning signs, and I think it's why it took them so long to actually raise rates. We talked all year about seeing a raise in interest rates, and they didn't do it. The rest of the world economy is not in good shape. That will potentially bleed into this country. One terrorist event away from total economic problems. I mean, remember what happened after 9/11?
Oh my God.
We shut the country down, right? And I think we have to worry about those kinds of things. Who knows what the reaction will be if certain candidates get elected president of the United States? I mean, it could be potentially devastating. So I don't think we are out of the woods here. I think that there are still economic conditions that warrant very, very close watching, and I'm not sure what the Fed does in the coming months.
What is your take on Janet Yellen? And so it's been 2 years now that she's been in? Maybe not quite that long.
I think she's done. I think she's done a terrific job. I mean, she
seems to be very careful,
very careful, very measured, trying to figure out. I think to do what's right for the economy, what's right for the country. I think masterfully handled this first rate increase. Right, there was no surprises here.
Yeah,
the markets, whether it was the bond market, whether it was the stock market, knew that this was coming and figured out how to price all this in. That's pretty smart, right? To be able to think about how you signal to the markets what's going to happen. I thought she did a really good job.
I mean, I think I remember correctly times in the past when the Fed would raise rates and the market would crash, would dive. But this time, the market, as I recall, last week, when she made her announcement, and the Dow went up 224 points that day.
And no, she signaled it very carefully. Of course, then it went down the same amount the next day, and then yesterday we were down 320 points at one point, and finished up 125. So I don't know what that means, but she's done a great job, and she's had to balance the other governors on the board with varying interests, and I think she's that was a unanimous vote to raise that rate, and that was a masterstroke.
So the soft underbelly of this economic recovery has been jobs and also wages, right? Now, is there any, particularly in this income gap, right, or inequality gap, or whatever, keeps either growing or at least bigger than ever? Do we see any improvement in let's say, the wages area?
Well, let's look what happened. In 2008, when the economy crashed, employers laid off people very, very, very quickly. And in that same time, as demand came back, they figured out how to produce the same number of goods or produce the same number of services with a lot
fewer people.
And technology has really taken off. I mean, the ability to use data, the ability to use all different kinds of computer and electronic technology has really allowed that to happen. In my own industry,
so those jobs aren't coming back,
or they're going to come back a lot slower, and that has really compressed wage demand. In our own industry, Bill, the chairman of Barclays the other day said that he thought you could do the same number of bank transactions with half as many people. Yeah. And I'm sorry, double the number of bank transactions with half as many people.
Yeah.
And that's in the traditional service economy, which we never thought of as technology taking over. But as people move to do more of their transactions online, self-service of a lot of transactions, that's exactly what's happening.
You know, interesting, maybe somewhat related, is I went to lunch with a friend of mine yesterday, and to a place I would never ordinarily go myself, but he insisted he wanted to take me downscale. It wasn't Applebee's.
Whoa.
It wasn't, but it was Pizza Uno, or
Pizzeria Uno.
Pizzeria Uno, right?
Okay.
They had a little machine on the table where you can place your order.
I just had this happen to me the other day.
And pay your bill and the whole thing. And I'm thinking, I don't like this because this is going to put waiting staff, waiters and waitresses, out of work, out of a job.
Yeah, that's what's happening. So we have to have a government response.
This just happened to us, and it was a restaurant that we go to quite often with the kids. And they just come by and they drop off this little machine. And I looked around and I was like, there are noticeably fewer people working here.
The airports are full of those places now. You go in, they all have the little iPad set up. You punch in your thing. All you have is a runner who brings your food out to you.
That's it.
You don't even pay. You pay the bill. So
imagine what they're getting paid.
Yeah.
We're
not going to change it, right? Over time, it is very difficult to fight back changes in technology. I think what it means is we have to create different kind of job demand. So we have to think about where can people actually work. So we have to think about our infrastructure. We have to think about rebuilding our infrastructure. There's tons of jobs in that sector that can be done. We have to dig up every sewer pipe in this country and replace them over time.
Yeah.
We should be thinking about how we make every building in this country energy efficient. Tons of jobs in entertainment and the arts and things, and we have to figure out how we're going to pay for them. And it's going to require raising taxes, and it's going to require the government paying for those kinds of things. And that's okay. And that's I think that's how we have to begin to change the debate in this country.
Times they are changing. Here's a leading banker who's right on top of all of it. Amalgamated Bank, amalgamatedbank.com. That's a mouthful, but it's all one word. It's their website, amalgamatedbank.com. Keith Mestridge with us. We'll be right back. You have a question or a comment or a suggestion, 866-55-PRESS.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that they could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. At the top of the next hour, Chris Van Cleve from CBS News will be along to tell us about the fact that you now have to register your drone. Chris reporting that story on CBS the other day. He'll be joining us right now. We're visiting with Keith Mestridge, who is the president and CEO of Amalgamated Bank. Keith, the last time you were in, I think it was, you were talking about some challenges that you had issued to your fellow bankers for some progressive changes made in the way they conduct their business. And you put that challenge out there. What response have you gotten?
So I've gotten really great response.
You might tell us again what some of the things that you talked about.
We really put a letter out to the banking industry that said there are certain principles in terms of responsible banking that people should do. Things like transparency and embracing equality and regaining our customers' trust. Those kinds of things that really take banking out of what's happened really over the last 2 decades, where banking has really become this very complicated investment exercise, humongous profits being earned by a very, very small number of banks, and people, I think, across the country forgetting that banking could actually be a source for good. And if you think about what community banking was for a long time, these were the people that helped communities grow.
And some of the big banks in Wall Street have really given all banks a bad name. Right?
I think that's right. And you know, huge fines, mega fines, lots of prosecutions against them for kinds of practices that almost have nothing to do with banking, right? Manipulation of LIBOR, commodities trading, making complicated securities out of basic loan products. Banking is really about figuring out how you take consumers and small businesses and even large businesses and lend them money and give them a safe place to keep their resources to allow them to prosper and grow. And that's what we really need to get back to. Let's get back to our basic knitting and doing that real business. Your colleagues in the Fourth Estate have embraced that. They think that it's great and have helped us, I think, elevate those challenges in a really terrific way. And when I talk to lots of other community bankers, and I don't just spend my time talking to people on the left, I talk to my colleagues in the banking industry as well. They think it's great, and they embrace it too and say that that's kinds of things that we should be doing. The debate around banking never gets back to those basics, though, and it's all about how do we change the complicated things that will allow the largest of the financial institutions to really prosper. And our bank is committed to trying to reclaim the high ground in terms of what banking can really be.
So is there a sense within the banking community that maybe they need to do some self-examination and some self-improvements here?
People are pretty self-aware, right? And so I think that most bankers know that they're not the most respected people in the world anymore. Nobody likes being in that position and can do that. I hope it can change, but it's going to be a lot of hard work. There's a lot of pressure for profits. Many banks are publicly traded, and they need to meet those metrics that keep their stock price up. They need to do that. The interest rate environment is challenging for banks, and they do have to figure that out. But I hope we can begin to be part of changing the terms in the debate of what the industry is really about.
Have any other banks followed your lead in the $15 an hour minimum for your employees?
There's a couple who have contacted us about wanting to figure out how to do some same things. There's a few interesting progressive, what are called community development financial institutions. They're smaller banks who want to do something similar. Nobody's followed us yet in terms of doing that, but we're going to keep pressing on it because there is no industry in this country that can afford to pay its workers a $15 minimum wage better than the financial industry can. And it's a crime that the average wage in this country for a bank teller is $12.40, and we just need to change that. And our industry, which has done tremendously well since 2008, our industry should be the leaders on raising wages across the industry.
If you're advising Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or whoever the new president of the United States is, what are the steps, or a couple of steps, that can be taken to do something about this disturbing gap in income, the income inequality or the wealth gap, or whatever you want to call it?
So I think all of the candidates in the Democratic Party have done a good job of identifying income inequality as a major issue.
Right.
There's some spectrum in terms of where they are, but if we compare where any Democrat is to any Republican, look, we're going to have to deal with tax policy in this country, right? It is simply crazy that 0.1% of the people make as much money as they do and don't pay their fair share of taxes. Here's one that nobody ever talks about: Social Security. Once you make, $118,000 a year or something like that, you stop paying Social Security. If you make $1 million a year, you stop paying Social Security tax on February 13th. That's crazy. That's crazy.
What?
So why don't we talk about those guys? And by the way, anybody making $1 million a year, if they have to pay that 7.5% Social Security tax for the whole year, doesn't change their life one bit. Let's start talking about those issues, right?
Whoa.
That's what we're going to have to do to begin to deal with. Then we can figure out how we take that additional tax money, plow it back into rebuilding our economy for all Americans, and not just for the wealthy.
Oh no! I mean, people just don't realize that, and they're not willing to deal with it. It just is insane.
I love Peter's reaction here, but let's just put that out there in the presidential debate, because everybody will find it to be ludicrous.
No, it's insane. It's insane, and nobody is talking about that on that stage.
Yeah,
right. Put that out there.
It gets back to kind of the Warren Buffett rule. And Hillary said, "I want the Warren Buffett rule and go beyond that."
It's still that taxes is still that third rail of politics, and we have to figure out how to change that.
All right. Hey, Keith, it's so great having you in. Thanks for your great work and your leadership in that industry. And we will see you early in 2016.
Great. Happy holidays.
All right. Happy holidays. We'll be right back to tell you what the president's up to today.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, are you ready? Hour number 3 coming up. Right away, you can watch us on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, or 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. You can watch us on Free Speech TV this third hour. And at the top of the third hour, Chris Van Cleve from CBS News will be joining us to talk about the fact that now you have to register your drones, or the drone police are going to show up at your door and fine you. And Paul Brandes, founder of West Wing Reports, will be along as well. Hour number 3. Stay tuned.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
should I get back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama on vacation, of course, and his day will either consist of a day at the beach or a day at the golf course, probably a little of both. Yesterday, boy, perfect timing for him. They invited the pool from the White House to watch the play on the 18th green, and President Obama chipped one in right into the hole. Yeah.
It's pretty good when you got a crowd watching, man.
Big triumph. Perfect timing. So more of that today for him. When we come back here, we'll be talking with Chris Van Cleve from CBS News about the new rules on drones. And then Paul Brandis joins us. He's the founder of West Wing Reports, author of the new book called Under This Roof, A History of the White House and the Presidency. Right here, hour number 3 of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen and some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together. And it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
A new honor for Donald Trump, named by PolitiFact the Liar of the Year. Well, that's not quite being president of the United States, but it is something he's achieved. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Tuesday, December 22nd. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in and joining us here on the Bill Press Show as we reach out to you nationwide, coast to coast, on your local progressive talk radio station on those great radio apps. Tune in or iHeartRadio, both free. Download them. Follow us on the radio wherever you go. We're also looking at you on television on Free Speech TV. If you've got a satellite dish, you can find us on DirecTV and on the Dish Network. As we come to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill with our entire team here, Peter Ogburn, Jamie Benson.
Hello, Bill.
Good morning. What's up? Everything good, huh?
Yes, indeed.
22nd of December. Come on. We're getting close to
We're
shutting down
there,
for the
man.
holidays.
Final hour for me.
Ray Rogers here. She's ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding on the job as our videographer. Yes, Donald Trump. They say among on PolitiFact, that project from the Tampa Bay Times, we've talked about it many times and had people on from PolitiFact. They looked at 77 statements Donald Trump had made and found that 76% of them were flat out false. Pretty high.
That's pretty
for
high.
example, he said that the numbers: whites killed by whites, 16%. Whites killed by blacks, 81%. Sounds pretty shocking, isn't it? PolitiFact looked into it. The actual numbers were whites killed by whites was 82%, not 16%. And whites killed by blacks was 15%, not 81%. It's just a little off in each case.
He's got some problems.
With the truth?
Problems with the truth, it sounds like.
All right. There it is. Hey, we're going to find out the latest on drones from Chris Van Cleve from CBS News. And a little bit later, Paul Brandis, the founder of West Wing Reports, will be here in studio with us. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Yes, indeed. End of the year means we're going to take a look at a couple of end of the year stories here. Google Trends released some of their data about the most popular food trends of 2015. The top food trends of 2015. Number one, avocado toast. This has been the year of avocado toast.
Somehow
I got big into avocado toast at the end of the year.
Avocado toast is delicious. It's basically just a piece of toast with some smeared avocado, and then you can dress it up. The restaurants are serving it these days.
Sounds good to me.
Served up, however, like a number of different ways. So that's at the top of the list. Fried chicken had a big year in 2015, which frankly never went out of style for me.
Yeah.
And cold brews are among the top searched Google trends, meaning like cold brewed coffee. People like to drink iced coffee, and it's not hot coffee that's then cooled off. It's brewed cold. So there you go, some of the top food trends of 2015. What was the biggest story of 2015? Well, the Associated Press has put out their list. The biggest story, according to the AP, of 2015 was...
the gay marriage ruling?
That's not far off. That's number two. That's number two. Number one, though, is the Islamic State. The rise and the terror.
That happened in 2013.
ISIL, they said that this was the
bombing
year.
Them in 2013, August.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But they say that this is sort of the year that they really gained control. They cite the fact that they bombed a Russian airliner, attacks in Beirut and Paris, and also other attacks. That puts them at number one. Number two, gay marriage, as you mentioned. Number three, the Paris attacks. Number four, just mass shootings in general, which is terrifying. And then number five, black deaths in encounters with the police. Number five on the list. And Barack Obama is known for making some, shall we say, offbeat media appearances. He did Mark Maron's podcast. He did the Bear Grylls survival show. He's done interviews with Vox and BuzzFeed, digital-only media
between
outlets.
Between the two ficus trees.
He did between two ferns. Between two ferns. Between two ficus trees. A much catchier name, by the way. I'd love that, actually. But he did between two ferns. But he has a new media appearance. He is appearing in Crackle's online series, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Right.
It is a series hosted by Jerry Seinfeld where he just drives around in a car with other comedians and other guests. They drink coffee and just shoot the S about whatever they want to talk about. And so Barack Obama is going to ride around in a car. Presumably, it's not going to be the beast he normally drives around in.
Right. Well, no, it is. Ray mentioned that they're just riding around the White House grounds.
Oh, are they in the limo, in the White House limo? Oh,
no, in Jerry's car.
Oh, in Jerry's car?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so there you go. It'll be a short ride.
Malia might be driving.
That's what they ought to do, right?
All right. Well, I don't know whether you know or not, but if you own a drone, as of yesterday, you had to register your drone. I learned about that last week on CBS News from transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve, who joins us from his drone on our news line this morning. Hey, hello, Chris. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
We're doing good. So this rule took effect yesterday, right? And why? Why is this the FAA doing this or what?
Yes, it is. The FAA has been struggling with, a number of drone sightings in places where the drone shouldn't be flying. And so this is in part a response to real growing concern about how people have been operating their drones. And one of the issues here is that, for the most part, the people who own drones are new to aviation and maybe didn't bother to learn the rules at which they're supposed to follow when operating these drones. So part of the FAA response, and this was done fairly abruptly and in a short amount of time here, was to develop a registration requirement for drone owners. That went into effect yesterday. If you already own a drone, you have until February 19th to register them. And then, of course, if you're buying one moving forward, you have to register it before you fly it.
Do you have to have a license to fly the drone?
Well, you have to register and receive an identification number.
But you don't have to take a course or classes or anything on how to operate it, right?
You do not. You have to be able to operate the internet. That's about it.
Yeah, which not quite the same, right? I would think, right? And
no, absolutely not. It's actually the same. It's a similar process to what somebody would go through to register an airplane. In fact, just scaled down to you go to the website, you enter your name, address, email, and if you want to give it your phone number, it's a $5 fee, which right now they're waiving, but they use the credit card to verify your identity, and then they issue you a number, an identification number that you have to display on all of your drones.
But again...
Wait, so they're waiving the fee, you said?
They're waiving the fee for the first 30 days.
Oh, funny.
First, Peter, get in there.
I know, man.
Peter, I'm not sure we're allowed to say.
We're allowed to say. He's not listening this morning. But
your son is not listening this morning, but he's going to get a drone for Christmas. You get it registered.
Yeah, I got to get it registered.
What happens if Peter does not register his drone, Chris?
Well, if you are caught operating a drone that's not registered, the FAA will likely give you a stern warning first. But they do have the ability to seek significant fines. It falls under the same statute that requires you have to register your Boeing 787 if you're an airline.
Oh, is that right? Well,
that's funny.
And seriously, well, first, there's so many questions about this, but let's start. I want to come back to what you said. The FAA had some sightings of drones. I mean, have there been any serious accidents involving drones? Has anybody been killed because of involving a drone?
As far as we know, there has never been a collision between a drone and an aircraft that's been confirmed. There's been a couple of suspected encounters where an aircraft suffered some damage that didn't look like it came from a bird strike. We do know that a university just put out some info a couple of weeks ago where they went through and analyzed the 1,000 or so drone sightings that have been reported by pilots over the last couple of years, and found in 28 cases pilots had to take abrupt evasive maneuvers to avoid a collision. In about 150 cases, a drone came within 200 feet of another aircraft. Of particular concern are helicopters because they tend to fly lower. And so the rules are, if you own a drone, you're supposed to operate it below 400 feet and not within 5 miles of an airport unless you've received permission from air traffic control. And we can tell you from going through some of these reports that most of these sightings are occurring at altitudes above 400 feet. So that puts them into the same airspace as, say, a police helicopter might be operating, or even in some cases a commercial airliner. And the real concern is that you'll have one of these sucked into an engine. And think back to the Miracle on the Hudson. That was a 10 to 15 pound bird that went into the engine and brought that plane down.
And does this apply to all? I mean, I don't have a drone, right? So, but I know there are different sizes drones. Some have cameras, some do not. Does this apply to all drones, or is there a certain, weight or size you have to be before you have to register?
250 grams up to 55 pounds. And this was a little controversial with the drone industry because, 250 grams is a little over half a pound. It's 0.55 pounds. So that is much more like a toy.
Yeah, that's a small drone.
Yeah.
Versus, like, say, the very popular Phantom 3 drone, which is several pounds and can fly fairly high.
Is that the one you got, Peter?
That's not the one I have. No. I don't have any heavy
That's
artillery.
a pricey drone. That's about $1,000.
Yeah, that's a big
new
one.
one off the shelf.
Okay, and so are there going to be drone police running around now here?
Well, that was actually a question I asked the Secretary of Transportation, and the real honest truth is that the FAA doesn't have law enforcement powers, so they have to work with local law enforcement. And one of the things that's been criticized about this registry is in order to, they say that it will give them the ability to, if a drone is operating recklessly, to trace it back to the owner. Well, they have to recover the drone and then get the identification number, and then they can trace it back. The number of times that they have recovered a drone that's been acting recklessly is relatively small. So enforcement is a big question here as to how they go about doing that. The FAA has said really they are hoping that this works as an education tool. In order to go through the process of getting this identification number, they flashed the operating rules at you several times. So at the very least, moving forward, people will have had to acknowledge that these are the rules. They've also put their name, address, phone number into a government database that, as a way of acknowledging that they have read these rules. And the FAA has leaned very strongly towards education versus enforcement. They've only taken enforcement action where they can seek a fine in a handful of cases.
Do you have any idea what the drone population is today, or the count of drones? I mean, and of course, you got those that are used by government agencies, and then you've got them where these rules particularly apply, I guess, to private individuals.
Right. We're not talking about your Reaper drones here. We're talking about, the hobbyist drones.
The hobbyist drones, right? Yeah. Are we talking about 10,000 or 10 million, or what are we?
The estimates for this Christmas season alone is somewhere between 700,000 and 1 million will be given as gifts.
Wow.
And we think there's about 1 million or so already out there.
No kidding.
Yeah. Huh. Well, Peter, you're ahead of the curve here.
I'm a part of an army here. I'm a part of an army. Who knew?
A lot of people who are already there. And in your research on this, did you talk to the people at Amazon? How close are they to Jeff Bezos' goal or dream of delivering packages by drones?
Well, one of the frustrations with people that would be commercial operators of drones is that the FAA guidelines, or the rule on commercial drone use, has been delayed. It was supposed to be delivered in 2015. At some point, the FAA believes it will be ready in 2016, the proposed rule. Amazon and others are working under an exemption where they're, sort of testing the feasibility of how they want to do things. But the commercial operation of drones still isn't technically permitted because the FAA hasn't come up with a rule, and they're behind schedule on that. And that's one of the things that in some ways has complicated this process is the drone industry is exploding at a really, really fast pace, and it's become the it thing people want, and the rules, the law is lagging well behind the trend.
Right. So watch out, guys. You get that drone under the tree on Christmas morning, right? The first thing you ought to do the next day, maybe get that. So where do you go to the local FAA? Oh no, you just do it online. You're saying
you do it online. Yeah,
right.
It's if you go into Google, put FAA UAS register, it will bring up the site. It launched yesterday in the afternoon. I will admit it took about 4 tries to get it to work, but within 15 minutes, I have a drone identification number now that if I had a drone, I would go and then display it on each drone I own, and that's basically the law. The real important thing really is knowing what the rules are, and you keep yourself out of trouble if you keep the drone within your line of sight, below 400 feet, and don't fly it near an airport or other closed airspace.
All right. Well, now that you have the number, Chris, I think you have to go out and get a drone to match that number. Here.
That's right.
That's the least you ought to do. So, all right. Have fun playing with your drone this Christmas, Chris Van Cleve. You can follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Van Cleve with a K. And also, of course, catch him on CBSNews.com. Thanks, Chris, so much. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Bill. Merry Christmas.
All right. Merry Christmas. There we go. We'll be right back.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Paul Brandis, founder of West Wing Reports, joins us in studio in the next half hour here on this Tuesday, December 22nd. I enjoyed that conversation with Chris Van Cleve about the registration of drones. Now, I hate to stir things up here, but may I just point out that I think it's very good move that the FAA has now said you have to register your drone. I would just like to point out that, as Chris told us, nobody has yet been killed by a drone.
Nope.
Yet. You know where I'm going. There are 89 people killed by gun violence a day in this country. So if you have a drone, you have to register it. You have to give the government, tell them about the drone, what kind of drone you bought, what you're going to use it for, where you live, what your telephone number is, what your credit card number is, all of the information before you can legally operate that drone. But you can walk into a gun shop, you can walk into a gun show, you can go online, you can buy any damn kind of gun you want, which is a killer weapon, right? And not have to register at all. And why do we have to register drones and not register guns? Damn it, people, we got things ass backwards.
Look how quickly we moved to get this drone registration happen.
As Chris pointed out, they did it almost overnight.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it moved like that.
The federal government did it itself overnight. The FAA. Congress wasn't even involved in it, right? Yeah, imagine. What we need, damn it, is an NDA, a National Drone Association.
There you go.
To say they're taking away my Second Amendment rights by making me register my drone.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, December 22nd. Happy holidays. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where we're expecting 75 degrees tomorrow or Thursday and Christmas Day. Go figure. Global warming. And today we're brought to you by by AFSCME, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country. The men and women of AFSCME under President Lee Saunders making America happen indeed, and we all live better because of their good work. Check out their website at AFSCME, AFSCME, AFSCME.org. President Obama off on Hawaii, his big vacation in Hawaii, but before he left, he held a little news conference last Friday to basically to brag a little bit, take a little victory lap of what he's been able to accomplish this year. Down at the White House briefings, I am often right there alongside of Paul Brandis, who's head of and founder of West Wing Reports, westwingreports.com, author of a new book we've talked about called Under This Roof, A History of the White House and Presidency. Paul, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
And same to you, sir.
Last time I saw you was at the White House Christmas party. We had a good time.
Yes. Lamb chops were good.
Weren't they good?
That's the best. That's the only reason to go.
Can I
Those lamb chops are just...
I didn't ask you.
Were you there?
I wasn't there. No, I don't do well with polite company.
But
tell me about this eggnog. Because Bill talks about this eggnog, and I haven't had any of this eggnog yet.
Well, I'm not an eggnog guy. I just don't do that. But
all right.
I hear...
I'm not either, except at the White House. The eggnog there is killer.
You know what the secret to that is? I actually tweeted this last night. I saw that Dwight Eisenhower would take, the egg yolks and whatever, and basically like a bathtub full of a bourbon. That's the secret.
That's the secret.
And I just thought, why bother with the egg yolks? Just go straight to the,
Well, there is...
It's the bourbon that makes
there's
good.
more good stuff than eggnog in the eggnog.
That's right.
That's what's important.
They serve at the White House. No, but it's always the White House looks particularly beautiful this year.
It was spectacular this year.
Yeah. All right. What'd you say to the president?
I just wished. Look, we have 10 seconds. I wished him a Merry Christmas, and I took my sister this year. It was a huge thrill for her. If you've never met a president, here's what's interesting. She doesn't even like the guy, but that's not the point. You respect the office, not the person. And even though she's not an Obama person, she's very respectful. And it's a big thrill to meet. And with people who say, you know what, I hate that guy, I can never be. But you know what, when you are in the midst of any president, Bush, Obama, I don't care who it is, people change and they're respectful. And I see it all the time. People say, Yeah.
I'm glad your sister didn't embarrass you by saying, I hate you, or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
But now, so as a segue to what we want to talk about, last year in 2014, in my 10 seconds there with the president, I said, Mr. President, don't let anybody tell you you're a dead duck. Because, he's entering that fateful period, the last 2 years of the presidency, which we want to talk about. So that was and he said right back to me, I'm not acting like one, am I? Point being, he comes into 2015, and he had a pretty good year. And that's unusual, isn't it? So tell us about this last 2 years, right, of any two-term presidency.
Well, if you go back and look at prior two-term presidents, every last two-term presidents, Eisenhower, Reagan, Clinton, and the second George W. Bush, they all ran into problems in their second term. There was a bad recession in Eisenhower's watch, for example. Reagan with Iran-Contra, Clinton got impeached, and Bush just, with the war and the economic collapse. So Obama has avoided all of that. So historically, compared to the other guys, it looks like, unless something happens next year, he's going to end on a pretty good note. The polls don't necessarily reflect that because this continues to be, as you know, a really highly divided country. I mean, what's interesting is that for all the people who think, this guy's just going belly up, he continues to kind of move in the low to mid 40s in the polls. Not spectacular, but, anywhere from 42 to 45% approval, disapproval from about 50 to 53. So he's consistently underwater, but he's steady as it goes. Compared to the other guys that I mentioned, all of them took big hits in their second term. Yeah. They really did. I mean, Reagan, they all bounced back at the end, but they all had big problems. I think Obama is probably going to leave 45%. And that's just, his numbers now. Over time, of course, those numbers, historians will take another look, and they may, in fact, give him higher numbers than he has now, sort of like a Harry Truman kind of thing. Unpopular, but over time, people will realize, we're better off whether you like him or not. I think it's hard to deny that we're not better off now than we were 7 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about it.
I think you have to say that. But it's interesting. Just maybe a little tangent here. I know this is a big debate among historians, that events shape the man, right? Man doesn't necessarily shape the events. In other words, no matter how good you are, look at what happened. George Bush gets in, and we get 9/11, right? And then we get this big reception. You could say he might have contributed to that big reception, but no matter what your plans are, things can happen that really throw you for a loop, right?
Well, Abraham Lincoln, when Lincoln came into office, he was not regarded as any big deal.
There you go.
He was a one-term congressman, an attorney. Talk about an inexperienced guy. 2 years in the House. He was just an attorney back in Illinois. Wasn't really all that much. He was an insecure man, wasn't very attractive, had kind of a funny voice. I mean, people didn't think all that much of him, but the Civil War made Lincoln. So to your point, events make the man. No question about it. Roosevelt during the 1930s. Absolutely true.
Now, so at Friday's news conference, the president said, okay, basically, you guys just thought I was not going to be able to get anything done, but let's look back at 2015, and he's railed off the Iran nuclear deal, the Paris climate deal,
right?
Opening up with Cuba, among other things. New progress with the Affordable Care Act, which is still in place, and
it's troubled. But
troubled, right? But still in place, right? Yeah. And more people than ever signed up. Yeah. And for him, the TPP, right? Which something I didn't like, but it was one of his goals, and he accomplished that. And he achieved all of that, Paul, kind of on his own, right? Didn't get much help from Congress.
Well, that's one of the criticisms is that he did all these things on his own. But, of course, the White House fires back. Look.
They didn't have any option, right?
When they say, look, Obama hasn't been forceful or responsive enough on ISIS, it's fair to point out that these Republicans in Congress have not authorized force either. So,
there's no AUMF.
You got to be fair, and if you're going to criticize them about that. The other thing that's interesting is that from an economic standpoint. Yesterday, AAA, which tracks daily gasoline prices, said that for the first time since 2008, the average national price of gasoline slipped below $2.
I know. Yeah.
For the first time since 2008. The average American household has now saved, according to one analyst report that I read, close to $800 this year alone. That's nothing to sneeze at. Now, you can argue who gets the credit for that, but nevertheless, a $2 gas. And these Republicans back in 2012, Gingrich said, well, if I'm elected, we're going to get $2.50 gas in 4 years. And of course, Romney said, well, if I'm elected, we're going to get 6% unemployment after 4 years. Well, we're already well below both of those benchmarks. You don't hear people talking about that. That's interesting.
No. I smile when you said you can argue about who gets the credit or who gets the blame. Or who gets the credit for the gas now being below $2, the national average. You know damn well if it were $4 or $4.50 or whatever, which maybe it should be from an environmental point of view, they would be blaming President Obama.
Well,
I mean, in fact, they did last summer, summer before last, whenever it was, the last spike we had in gas prices. They always blame the president for it.
Oh, sure, and it's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, they forget that when George W. Bush, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just telling you what the numbers are. When Bush was sworn in January 2001, gas was, I think, about $1.14, and because of the economic recovery, demand went up and all of that. By the summer of 2008, July 2008, that $1.14 went to $4.14. People were screaming, and then it went from $4.14 all the way down to $1.86 in 6 months when Obama was sworn in. And, gee, what could have happened in those 6 months? Could have been economic collapse. Maybe that had something to do with it. But people say, when Obama was sworn in, gosh, gas was only $1.86. You know why? Because the economy collapsed, you dunces. And so it moves in cycles. Presidents, for better or worse, get the blame.
Right. So all in all, President Obama says, and I think you have to agree, he had a pretty good year, and he vowed, Paul, that 2016 he was going to keep at it full throttle. And we'll talk when we come back about what might be on the agenda for him and for us in 2016. Again, West Wing reports. To sign up and find out what's happening at that end of Pennsylvania Avenue. From Paul Brandis, westwingreports.com. We'll be right back. Do you have a question or a comment or a suggestion? You're more than welcome to join us here at the table.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning If you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
All right, at 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Tuesday, December 22nd, with Paul Brandis from West Wing Reports. You started that on your own, right? I mean, just to keep track of what's happening at the White House?
Well,
How long ago?
I came in 2008, and I started. I actually worked for about 1/2 day a week with your good friend Ellen Ratner, who is.
Oh right, yeah, she was in the other day.
Who's
selling goats?
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's wonderful.
Not selling
and
goats,
then,
but
yeah.
Getting people to buy a goat to help the people of South Sudan, and I bought my goat. I want you to know.
Did you really?
I haven't named it yet, but anyhow, I'm in.
So I went off on my own about a year after that. So I've been on my own since. Yeah. So far, so good.
As you point out, West Wing Report on Twitter is a must-follow account. It's a really, really great account for just all things politics, White House happenings.
Did you know that it's the biggest Twitter account in the entire White House press corps?
No, really?
Let that slip in.
All right.
So,
West Wing Reports.
yeah.
WestWingReports.com. The biggest of the entire White House press corps. All right.
That and $3 will get you on the metro. Really,
All right. So we've been talking about President Obama having a good year in 2015. Now, Mr. Presidential Historian, we're getting into the last year of the presidency, which is also, of course, always an election year. This year, just basically gliding through, or can you reasonably expect the president to get anything done?
Well, nobody thought he would get all the things that he got done this year. You know, I think that he's going to push, and we saw some encouraging signs of bipartisanship at the end of the year, too. I mean, Paul Ryan, of course, if he can keep this far right in check, seems to be kind of, getting a little more done. But in an election year, people tend to dig in, not do as much. And again, Congress is only going to be in town, I think, for 111 days next year.
We were told the other day 80.
Oh, 80.
80.
Well,
Emma Roller, I think it was, and yesterday, whoever was following Congress said 80.
So that's right there is a limitation on what they're going to be able to do. So the president, I think, will do whatever he can on his own to get things done, which, of course, will make the far right crazy. But where's Congress? If they're out of town, what is he going to do? I think he wants to get Congress to approve this trade pact, the TPP. I think Mitch McConnell has signaled that's probably not going to happen. He still wants to do something on guns. My answer is good luck with that. Although your prior point about the FAA and registering drones, if they want to do something, they can do it in a hurry.
And but we've been told, one of the briefs, that they've indicated they are researching what they can do by executive order on guns. And I think you're right. I think we can see some effort in that in 2016.
Well, it'll be totally on his own, of course. And if a Republican comes in a year from now, of course, that's out the window.
Right.
But
the other thing that Paul Ryan has indicated, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier, that he might be willing to at least let happen early in 2016 is a new authorization for the use of military force, which, let's face it, I mean, for Congress not to have done anything, we've been bombing ISIS since August 2013, right? And Congress has just refused to even debate whether or not we should be doing it.
Well, you can't sit back and say, one, you're not doing enough, while two, refusing to give him not that he needs it, but he wants, from, say, a political solidarity standpoint,
sure.
you want Congress behind you if you're going to be engaged in overseas military operations. It looks good to the rest of the world to have, two key branches of government working together. And you don't have that right now.
Right. And I think to further your point, you can't complain about this guy is abusing his executive authority and doing too much on his own when he is asked for authority to conduct these bombing strikes, and they won't even, again, they may vote it up, they may vote it down, they won't even debate it.
Well,
so far.
Well, that's true. The other thing about these executive orders, if you go back and study the number of executive orders going all the way back to George Washington, Obama, compared to the last 5 or 6 presidents, has actually issued far fewer executive orders than his prior 5 or 6 predecessors. People don't know that. They criticize him just because an executive order on this, that's unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional. He has the legal authority to do it. You say it's illegal just because you don't like what he's doing.
So now, as the author of the book Under the Roof, A History of the White House and the Presidency, will Donald Trump, if elected, really be the healthiest person ever to occupy the Oval Office?
Well, his doctor last week came out with this, who knows? He said, well, I have tremendous stamina and energy. Of course, I don't want to stand for a 3-hour debate, but I have tremendous stamina and energy. And then, of course, there's Hillary, who put up with an 11-hour ordeal with these, with the Trey Gowdy and the Benghazi. She sat there for 11 hours and took their best shots. And Trump says, she's a low-energy person. But then he can't withstand a 3-hour debate. I mean, come on. No, he's not the health. I think Theodore Roosevelt he could knock him down real quick.
You know what? Yeah, I think you're right. Teddy Roosevelt was probably the healthiest and the most energetic president we've ever had. Hey, Paul, what great fun. Great work, too. To direct you again, as Peter said, it's a must-read, a must-sign up, westwingreports.com. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
To you, sir.
All right.
And to you.
We'll be back, wrap things up.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show,
We get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, Lindsey Graham drops out of the presidential race, and I hate to say it, maybe, but I'm sorry to see him go. Actually, of course, as the biggest hawk in the race, I disagreed with him on anything he said about foreign policy, especially about sending more ground troops into Syria. But Graham was still the best debater of them all, the funniest of the bunch, and he brought a lot of authenticity to the race. Nobody was willing to take on Donald Trump like he did, saying that he didn't care if Donald Trump left the Republican Party. He wanted him out of the Republican Party. He said he'd rather lose with somebody else than try to win with Donald Trump. Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, George Pataki, and Carly Fiorina. Too bad they didn't drop out and Lindsey Graham didn't stay in. My parting shot for today, folks. We'll be here tomorrow, and we'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.